somebody say something, anybody. I'm not gonna take it offense. It's not personal. Jimmy, you shouldn't have done that. Yeah, you probably right. I would have said, I ain't hooped in I don't know how long. I mean, I'm passionate about it. I love the game and I love to win. And that's all I was out there doing, was competing.
Everywhere Jimmy Butler has gone thus far, he's blazed some trail of success regardless of how noticeable it was. Yet, he's been one of the more disrespected and even overlooked players. Fans often opting to declare that he's overrated or that he hasn't had the success to justify his attitude. But exactly what attitude is being referred to here? The only aggression he's ever displayed was a will to win. And now that he's got a final series under his belt, win or lose, he's backed up whatever talking he's done or controversy his drive for success has caused. We all know how difficult it can be to learn something new these days because life is just constantly going. Social media distractions here, and whatever else you're focused on in life that makes it feel impossible to just sit still for a moment. So if you feel like you've got no time to read books or develop yourself, Blinkist is the perfect app for you. Blinkist gives you the best insights from over 3,000 nonfiction books and condenses them into just 15 minutes. You have the option to read these brief versions or listen to them podcast style. Upon using the app myself, a blank I took time to listen to was Dark Matter and the Dinosaurs. I'm always fascinated by space and science, so getting the gist of the piece in a very short amount of time was helpful. And you can find something just like this for your fascinations and indulge in them with very little commitment. They also now include full-length audiobooks, and you have access to all the titles while offline. Blinkist provides a very non-intrusive way to include learning something new into your busy schedule. The first 100 people to go to Blinkist.com/Dom2K are going to get unlimited access for 1 week to try it out. If you decide you want the full membership, you'll get 25% off. The 7-day trial is completely free, and you can cancel it at any time during that period. Premium subscribers get special member pricing up to 65% off of the regular retail price. Become one of 14 million active users of Blinkist by clicking on the link in the comment section and description today. And a special thank you to them for sponsoring today's video. Jimmy Butler emerged as a second star for the Chicago Bulls at a time when they were in a state of uncertainty. Thwarted by multiple injuries to their former MVP point guard, Chicago was looking for ways to salvage the era before having to completely move on from it. They targeted stars in free agency such as Melo because it had been clear even before the injuries, especially with LeBron James in the conference, that Rose would need a solid number 2 for the team to reach higher levels. However, Rose's apparent reluctance to participate in the courting process of other players posed an obstacle in that ever happening. Luckily for them, at least at the time, they'd already drafted that second star right after Rose won his MVP award. That much just wasn't clear yet. As a matter of fact, it ironically became clearer through their misfortunes as Rose's consistent injuries opened up opportunities for other guys to step up. So through that time, from 2013 to 2015, Butler would see his averages skyrocket from 8 to 20 points, all while becoming a first-time All-Star. Unfortunately, the timing would just never be quite right for things to manifest the way they were supposed to with the Bulls, as they would disappointingly lose to what was really an ailing Cavs team with injuries and suspension in 2015, and slowly exit the Derrick Rose era through more injuries in their last year. The thing is, although they clearly had something in Butler, he'd never come off as more than a great supporting star for a team in contention. So sure, it would have been great for him to develop next to an MVP Rose throughout the decade, but leading a rebuild while already being in his mid-20s, Chicago saw it like a lot of people. Great player, but not enough there to justify banking on him to take you to the promised land. Specifically after that very forgettable Big 3 attempt featuring him, past his prime Wade and past his prime Rondo. Looked good in the photos, and even probably would have done something in the 2017 playoffs had Rondo not have been injured so early. But there again, having been a part of that reverse sweep and the subsequent locker room issue rumor that would follow, nobody saw it fit to bank on him as the guy. And so came his first official slight, being thrown to the wolves, literally. Butler was sent to a franchise that hadn't put together anything respectable since the KG era, or in other words, over a decade. They had a good player here, team with potential there, but mostly losing records and most importantly, no playoffs. However, between having a developing cat, which at his best was a top big man in the league, Wiggins the developing prospect, and some decent support pieces, throwing Butler into the mix clearly gave them a chance at something. That something being the most success they'd seen in the last 14 years, and hell, maybe even the next at this rate. Butler would go on to lead the team in scoring that year, and despite missing games at a significant time due to injuries, he'd done just enough in that short stint to propel Minnesota to its first playoff berth since 2004. Of course, this was the Western Conference, and any hopes of a fairy tale run were completely dashed rather quickly. But there lay proof that Butler's eventual will to win mantra wasn't just some narrative. Well, actually, that really hit the front pages at the dawn of the next season. A rather hilarious story had broken out in October of 2018. Butler was a bully. As it was told, he'd taken the worst players on the team in practice and defeated the other star players in a scrimmage, barking and stirring up plenty of controversy in the process. It became the stuff of legends immediately, portraying Butler not only as a dog, but as a player you simply could not be around if your goals didn't align. So if you were Andrew Wiggins and hadn't shown a whole lot of improvement in your game, or Cat who posted amazing numbers but disappeared in the playoffs, you couldn't breathe the same air as him. He was going to try to break you. The problem became that this declared a pattern in the eyes of some. Rumored locker room issues when he was playing with the legendary Dwayne Wade of all people, and now a holier-than-thou image being painted on a team he'd relatively just arrived to. Who exactly was Jimmy Butler to radiate this type of energy? What exactly had he won? What success justified the stories that followed him? In the eyes of the "what have you done for me lately" public, Butler was becoming a toxic figure. You simply couldn't just walk around with the vibes of Kobe with only a few 20-point per game seasons to back it up. There needed to be more, and still, nobody was convinced that he was that type of player. Just because nobody was convinced he justified the ground that he walked on yet didn't mean they didn't understand the gravity of him being traded to Philadelphia. The Sixers were a team a bit further along in the process, if you will, than the Minnesota Timberwolves, as they'd already seen the playoffs with their young duo, even if it'd been massively disappointing. But that's exactly what Butler was for, pushing a team past its previous limits, and from the very beginning, he'd shown he was capable of that. Between Butler and the addition of Tobias Harris, the Sixers were seen as a legitimate threat to grab power in a conference that no longer contained LeBron James. It was anybody's crown to take between the best 4 teams there. Philly would go on to push the Raptors to a thrilling 7-game series, coming literal bounces away from going to the conference finals. Meanwhile, the team that let him go would win 10 less games and largely return to irrelevancy. And yet again, the rumblings of locker room discomfort in Philly. Any wild guesses on the common denominator here? However, the Philly drama becomes more important a bit later down the road. So, who did Jimmy Butler really think he was choosing the Miami Heat? Here we had a player that hovered around 20 points a game, was a great defender, but was stereotyped as being hard to play with and had still done absolutely nothing significant. So he would take that reputation and go to a team that hadn't even made the playoffs the previous year? That when he could have A, stayed with a team that had clear finals potential, or B, went to a team with quote real stars and clear finals potential. But the one thing he was not in people's eyes was the best player with the ability to elevate a subpar team, and clearly the only parties who believed that he was were himself and the Miami Heat with their grind culture that perfectly matched his alleged fairy tales. But not only did he have the audacity to choose a destination as if he were the star that could change things, he barked about it. He was vocal about the disrespect of people treating him like he wasn't that dog, and not long after, he verbalized what many suspected: the locker room problems, with his old team of course. In an interview, he'd go on to cryptically imply that there were problems in Philly, and again that they were just too soft for a guy like him. At least that's how people took it. To this day, he has not clearly stated what went on in his brief stint there. He says it'll all come to light, but in leaving it to imagination of the people after his issues with Chicago and Minnesota, it wasn't hard for people to just reassure themselves that he was toxic and overrated. Jimmy said he wanted to win, and the picture being painted was that if you put a lion in a room with pups, problems ensue. But what lion? That's what the people wanted to know. What made this guy a lion other than a mean snarl and this narrative about winning that hadn't yet materialized? That basically settled it. Jimmy Butler was an overrated player that was more mythical than anything, and whether he liked it or not, he was a secondary guy with the bravado of a champion, and that just did not sit well with the critics. Problem was, critics just did not know Jimmy like he knew himself. At the moment that I tell this story, it appears that he's arrived at his desired destination, and it's quite possible everything he's been telling us was totally accurate, as he currently performs as the best player on a finals team. Not one, not two, but 3 franchises that were once graced with his presence sit in shambles, either rebuilding and about to lose the star they thought they could trust over him, or presiding over a largely uncertain future. The truth seems to be that Jimmy was just never satisfied playing with guys that wouldn't at the very least match his intensity, and in Miami, he's found a roster from top to bottom that would do just that. It's talented, but not the most talented option that he had out there. But the series with Milwaukee all but proved that fit is the most important factor, and that's all he ever wanted. During that series, it often felt like the Bucks were the underdogs. It felt like they were the intimidated team searching for ways to fight back as they were blitzed by a squad that hasn't feared anyone more talented than them yet. And his latest acts in the NBA Finals should leave nothing more to question. They've been the underdogs. They've been injured. The one thing they haven't been is quitters. And it's hard not to see Jimmy Butler's effect on that aspect. This team could have folded multiple multiple times, just packed it in. Absolutely nobody would have blamed them for just becoming another chapter in the legacy of LeBron James. Yet, in the most dire of circumstances, they didn't die, and it was led by the man himself. A 40-point triple-double in a practical winner-go-home situation, playing all but 48 seconds of a game in a true winner-go-home situation, and most of all, not backing down from the king. After Game 5, I had to ask myself when the last time was that I saw a player lead his team on offense while also taking the LeBron James challenge on the other end of the floor, and it was difficult to find a situation quite like Butler's. A lot of the finals teams LeBron has played had a star that either wasn't playing his position or that wasn't guarding him for obvious reasons. Seeing Jimmy Butler grow in the clutch on one end while not backing down from closeout LeBron in the waning minutes of a championship game totally justified the last few years of his career regardless of the result of this series. A player that was drafted at the very end of the first round with no expectations to become anything more than a role player, openly welcoming the challenge of a player clearly chasing Michael Jordan. It's the entire essence of what Jimmy Butler is all about, and it's what he's been trying to tell us this entire time. Does guaranteeing finals wins before the games are even played come off as ridiculous? Does leaving a trail of controversy in every single stop of his career while declaring the environment couldn't match his level come off too strong when he hasn't won anything? There's certainly arguments for that, but as a player that nearly fell to the second round in the draft, working for everything he's gotten while taking each team he's graced to its highest point, it's probably past time to admit that he's earned his respect. And win or lose here, he'll be right back next year doing everything in his power to lift his team as close to his potential as possible. That's the brilliance of Jimmy Butler.
But is everybody going to be honest? No. No, everybody's not going to be honest. Like if you go and say, which one of y'all told what Jimmy said today in practice? Everybody, no, I don't know. You ain't be honest. I don't care. There ain't nothing we can do about it now, but be honest. That's it. I just want everybody to be happy. I want to win. I'm sorry if I go about it the wrong way. I really do apologize.